My name is Marcus Hayes, and I was 17 when my parents threw me out like yesterday's trash. It happened on a Wednesday night in our cramped living room in South Boston. Mom sat on the worn couch with her arms crossed while Dad stood by the door, car keys already in his hand like he couldn't wait to be done with me. "You're not our responsibility anymore," Dad said, his voice flat and final. Mom nodded, picking at her sleeve. "We did our part. You're 18 in 2 months. Consider this early independence." I stared at them, my backpack half-zipped on the floor, holding the few things I'd scrambled to grab. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. Dad shrugged. "Figure it out." That's what adults do. They didn't kick me out because I was trouble. I wasn't doing drugs or failing school. My crime was simpler. I wasn't Marcus anymore. I was Jade, and they couldn't stand it. 6 months earlier, I told them I was transgender, that I'd been hiding who I really was since middle school. Mom cried for 3 days. Dad stopped talking to me completely. They made me see their pastor, who told me I was confused and sinful. When I refused to fix myself, they started treating me like a stranger in their own house. Cold dinners, locked bedroom door, conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Tonight was just the final step. I left with $37, my phone with a cracked screen, and Grandpa Samuel's old wallet. He died 2 years ago, and I kept it because it smelled like his cologne and made me feel less alone. Inside was his driver's license, a faded photo of Grandma, and a dark blue card I'd never really noticed before. It looked like a credit card but heavier, made of metal with gold edges. The name embossed on it read Samuel J. Hayes, no bank logo, just a phone number printed in tiny letters on the back. I walked 6 blocks to the bus station and sat on a bench under the fluorescent lights, trying not to cry. My best friend Alexis let me crash on her couch for 3 nights. Her mom was kind but worried, whispering questions about my parents that Alexis deflected. On the 4th morning, Alexis handed me a $20 bill and a list of youth shelters. "I'm sorry, Jade," she said, eyes red. "My mom says we can't get involved in family stuff. She's afraid your parents will cause problems." I understood. I took the money, hugged her tight, and left before I made it harder. The shelter was across town, a gray building with bars on the windows and a waiting list 3 weeks long. I sat in their lobby for 2 hours before a tired woman told me they had no space. That night, I slept in a 24-hour laundromat. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of detergent made my head ache. I folded Grandpa's wallet open and stared at the blue card, wondering what it was for. The next morning, hunger made me brave. I walked into a corner store and bought a protein bar and coffee with the card, half expecting it to decline. The machine beeped, approved, the receipt printed, but it didn't show a balance or bank name. Just transaction authorized in black letters. I ate the protein bar on the curb outside and felt Grandpa's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. For 2 weeks, I used the card carefully. $5 here, $8 there. Gas station sandwiches. A cheap motel room when the temperature dropped below freezing. The card never declined. Never asked for a PIN. I started wondering if it was connected to some small account Grandpa had left behind, maybe a few $100s he'd forgotten about. I rationed every purchase, terrified of maxing it out. One afternoon, I tried using an ATM to check the balance. The machine whirred, then displayed an error message, unable to process. Contact cardholder services. The phone number from the back of the card glowed in my memory. I called the number from a library computer room where I'd been filling out job applications. A woman answered on the first ring. "Hayes Family Trust Services. How may I assist you?" Her voice was professional, almost formal. I hesitated. I found this card. It belonged to my grandpa, Samuel Hayes. He passed away 2 years ago." There was a pause. "May I have your name, please?" "Jade Hayes," I said, then corrected myself out of habit. "I mean Marcus Hayes." Legally, another pause, longer this time. Mr. Hayes, can you confirm your date of birth and social security number? I rattled them off, confused. Why would a dead man's card need this much security? The woman's tone shifted. Mr. Hayes, I need you to visit our office in person for verification. Can you come to Boston Financial Plaza downtown tomorrow at 10? I almost laughed. I don't have money for the subway. We'll arrange a car service. What's your current location? 20 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up outside the library. The driver, an older man in a suit, opened the door without asking questions. I climbed in, clutching Grandpa's wallet, wondering if I just made the worst mistake of my life. The car smelled like leather and expensive cologne. We drove through streets I recognized, then into neighborhoods I'd only seen in movies. Tall buildings, doormen, people in clothes that cost more than my parents' monthly rent. Boston Financial Plaza was all glass and marble. The driver led me through a private entrance to an elevator that required a key card. We rode to the 18th floor in silence. The doors opened into an office that looked like something from a lawyer show. Dark wood, leather chairs, paintings that were probably worth more than cars. A woman in her 50s stood waiting, wearing a navy suit and pearl earrings. Mr. Hayes, she said, extending her hand. I'm Victoria Brennan, Senior Trust Administrator. Thank you for coming. I shook her hand, aware of how I must look. Wrinkled clothes, unwashed hair, the smell of laundromat detergent still clinging to my jacket. Victoria led me into a private conference room and closed the door. I need to verify your identity, she said gently. Do you have identification? I handed over my school ID and birth certificate, which I'd grabbed before leaving home. She examined them carefully, then typed something into a tablet. Her eyes widened slightly. Mr. Hayes, I need to ask you some questions about your grandfather. When did he pass away? October 2022, I said. Where did he live before his death? Dorchester. Small house on Melville Avenue, she nodded slowly. What was his wife's name? Eleanor. She died when I was 10. Victoria set down the tablet and folded her hands. Mr. Hayes, your grandfather established a trust fund 30 years ago. You're listed as the primary beneficiary. The room felt to warm suddenly. A trust fund. Grandpa worked at the docks. He barely had enough for rent. Victoria's expression softened. Your grandfather was a very private man about his finances. The trust was established with funds from a settlement he received in 1993. He invested conservatively and never touched the principal. He wanted it to grow for you. My throat tightened. How much? She turned the tablet toward me. The number on the screen made my vision blur. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. $1,247 million. $1.2 billion. I looked up at Victoria, waiting for her to laugh, to tell me this was a mistake. She didn't. This is real. I whispered. Victoria explained it carefully, like she was afraid I might faint. Grandpa had won a massive lawsuit against a shipping company in 1993 after an accident that killed 3 workers. The settlement was $15 million. Instead of spending it, he'd invested in tech stocks early, buying into companies that became giants: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. He'd lived in his small house, worked his modest job, and let the money grow untouched for 30 years. Why didn't he use it? I asked. Victoria smiled sadly. He told me once that he didn't need wealth to be happy. He had his family. But he wanted you to have choices he never did. She slid papers across the table. He specified that you'd gain access at 18 or in case of emergency hardship. I believe this qualifies. I signed papers with shaking hands. Victoria explained that the trust had protections built in: investment advisors, legal teams, tax specialists. I wouldn't just get a pile of money and chaos. There were structures, systems. We'll start with a primary account, she said. $5 million immediately accessible. That gives you freedom while we work on long-term planning. $5 million. Like it was pocket change. She handed me a new card, black with gold lettering. This is connected to your primary account. The blue card your grandfather carried was a secondary access card he kept for emergencies. It's connected to the same trust. I held both cards, feeling their weight. They felt like keys to a life I couldn't imagine. Victoria arranged everything. A hotel suite while I looked for permanent housing. A prepaid phone with unlimited service. New clothes delivered within hours. She even assigned me a personal financial advisor named Thomas, a man in his 40s who spoke in calm, measured tones and didn't ask why I looked like I'd been sleeping rough. That first night in the hotel, I stood in the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked the same. Short hair I'd cut myself. Dark circles under my eyes. The same person who'd been kicked out 2 weeks ago. But everything had changed. I thought about my parents, about the way Dad had looked at me that last night. You're not our responsibility. I wondered what they'd say now. I didn't contact them. Not yet. Instead, I focused on basics. Thomas helped me find an apartment, a 2-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with actual security and a doorman who smiled when I walked past. I enrolled in online classes to finish high school. I bought groceries without checking prices. Small freedoms that felt massive. I also started therapy. A woman named Dr. Patricia who specialized in LGBTQ youth and family trauma. She didn't flinch when I told her about the money. Wealth doesn't erase pain, she said during our 3rd session. It just changes what resources you have to process it. She was right. I still woke up some nights expecting to be back in the laundromat 3 months after that meeting with Victoria. I was walking through Boston Common when I saw them. Mom and Dad, they were sitting on a bench near the pond, looking older than I remembered. Mom's hair had more gray. Dad's shoulders slumped forward. They were eating sandwiches from plastic containers, the cheap kind from gas stations. I almost walked past, almost let them stay in my rearview forever. But something made me stop. Mom, Dad, they looked up. Mom's face went through confusion, recognition, shock. Marcus, her voice cracked. Dad stood slowly, eyes scanning me like he was checking for evidence of failure. Instead, he saw new clothes, clean hair, the confidence that came from not being hungry. You look good, Mom said, and I heard the question underneath. How? Dad's jaw tightened. Where are you staying? I have an apartment, I said simply. Been doing okay. They exchanged glances. The kind of silent conversation parents have. We've been worried. Mom tried. The lease sat thick between us. Have you? I asked. Because the last time we spoke, you told me I wasn't your responsibility anymore. Dad flinched. We thought tough love would help you figure things out. Stop this confusion. I'm not confused, I said quietly. I never was. You just didn't want to hear it. Mom stood, reaching toward me. Marcus, please. We made mistakes, but you're still our child. Can we talk? Really talk? We sat at a cafe near the Common. I bought their coffee without thinking, pulling out the black card. Dad's eyes tracked it. That's a fancy card for someone who just got kicked out, he said. I met his gaze. Grandpa left me money. Mom leaned forward. Your grandfather. How much? Enough, I said. Enough that I'm never going to worry about where I'm sleeping or what I'm eating. Enough that I have choices. Dad's expression shifted. I watched him calculate, add numbers in his head, wonder how this changed things. That's wonderful, Mom said, and I heard the hope creeping into her voice. The same hope I'd heard when she talked about lottery tickets. We could help you manage it. Make sure you don't make foolish decisions. I stirred my coffee slowly. I have financial advisors, a legal team, people Grandpa trusted to handle his estate. I'm covered, but family should help family, Dad said, and the irony wasn't lost on either of us. Is that what we're doing now? I asked, being family. Because 3 months ago, family meant throwing me out with $37. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We were scared. We didn't know how to handle it. Your father and I, we were raised differently. This transgender thing, it's not what we understand. It's not a thing, I said. It's who I am. And you had two choices. Love me anyway or choose your fear. You picked fear. Dad shifted uncomfortably. If we could take it back, but you can't, I interrupted. And here's what I need you to understand. I'm not Marcus anymore. My name is Jade. I'm starting hormone therapy next month. I'm living my truth with, or without your approval. The silence stretched. Mom looked at her coffee. Dad stared out the window. Finally, Mom spoke. I don't know if I can call you that. Her honesty hurt, but it was better than lies. Then maybe we're not ready to be in each other's lives, I said. I'm not asking you to understand everything today, but I need you to try. Actually try. Not perform acceptance while wishing I was different. I told them about the shelter waiting list, the laundromat, the protein bars that became my meals. Mom cried. Dad looked away, jaw working. I didn't think it would be that bad, he said quietly. You thought I'd come crawling back, I replied. Scared enough to pretend to be who you wanted. But Grandpa gave me something you never did. He gave me the freedom to be myself. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo. Me with Alexis and two other trans friends I'd met through a support group. We were laughing, genuinely happy. This is my family now, I said. People who see me. If you want to be part of my life, you have to see me too. We didn't fix everything that day. You can't repair years of rejection over coffee. But something shifted. Mom asked careful questions about my therapy, my plans. Dad admitted he'd been angry at himself for months, that kicking me out haunted him. I want to try, Mom said finally. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I want to know my child. Even if that means learning new things, it was a start, a fragile one. I didn't invite them to my apartment. Didn't offer them money when Dad mentioned they were struggling with bills. Boundaries were important now. Dr. Patricia had taught me that. Here's my new number, I said, writing it on a napkin. If you're serious about trying, call me. But I'm Jade. That's non-negotiable. 6 months later, I was standing in front of a building I just purchased. A community center in Dorchester, 3 blocks from where Grandpa used to live. I'd worked with Thomas and Victoria to establish the Samuel Hayes Foundation. We provided housing assistance, job training, and support services specifically for LGBTQ youth who'd been rejected by their families. The same kids who ended up in shelters or laundromats or worse. Alexis stood beside me, holding a clipboard. She'd become the center's first employee, coordinator of outreach programs. Your grandpa would love this, she said. I looked up at the sign being installed. Samuel's place, he saved me twice, I said. Once with his money. But really, he saved me by seeing me. Even before I had the words, my parents came to the opening ceremony. Mom brought flowers. Dad wore a tie. They stood awkwardly near the back while I gave a speech about second chances and the difference between existing and living. Afterward, Mom approached carefully. You look happy, she said. I am, I replied. She touched my arm gently. I've been reading about trans people, about what you're going through. I don't understand everything yet, but I'm trying. Dad cleared his throat. We're proud of you, Jade. What you're doing here. It matters hearing him say my name cracked something in my chest. It wasn't perfect. We still had hard conversations ahead, but it was real. They were trying. That was enough for now. I still carry Grandpa's old wallet. The blue card sits next to the black one, a reminder of where I started. Sometimes I take it out and remember the taste of gas station protein bars, the cold of the laundromat floor, the fear that I'd never be safe again. Grandpa didn't just leave me money. He left me proof that I mattered, that I was worth investing in, worth protecting, worth building a future for. Every kid who walks through Samuel's Place doors gets that same message. You matter. You're worth it. Your truth deserves space. My parents kicked me out thinking they were teaching me a lesson. Instead, they taught me exactly who I was. Strong enough to survive, brave enough to become myself, and wealthy enough to make sure other kids didn't have to sleep in laundromats to figure that out.